Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museums will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with MisFitNation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right. Welcome to our Tuesday after dinner show. It's a great Tuesday here. But we do have some sad news to report, and our hearts are heavy here in Clarksville. After this weekend, MH-60 with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment experienced in-flight emergency during training in Eastern Mediterranean Sea, causing a crash, and we lost 5 aviators. They are Chief Warrant Officer Stephen R. Dwyer, 38 of Clarksville, Tennessee. Chief Warrant Officer 2 Shane M. Barnes, 34 of Sacramento, California. Sergeant Tanner W. Groan, 26 of Gorham, New Hampshire. Sergeant Andrew P. Southard, 27 of Junction, Arizona. And Sergeant Cade M. Wolf, 24 of Mankato, Minnesota. To Valhalla, brothers, we have the words from now, and our thoughts and prayers are with your family and friends as we move forward. So we'll pause for a moment of silence there. All right. Our next guest has built a successful company from scratch and decided he wanted to teach others how to do the same. In his 50s, with no teaching experience, his only job offer was from a minimum security prison camp. Having no experience with prisons or the incarcerated, he told his first class on the first day, "I'm going to learn a lot more from you than you could possibly learn from me." His book, Lifeline to a Soul, takes the reader inside the fence and chronicles the victories and challenges he faced as a first-time teacher in this strange world. His experience will entertain us, enlighten, and educate anyone who is curious about what life is like inside a rural, minimum security prison camp. So without further ado, let's welcome John McLaughlin, author, entrepreneur, and prison teacher to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, John.
Hey, thank you, Rich. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm a fan of the show. I'd like to first of all thank you for your service. I never served, but for everybody listening who has, my heartfelt thanks. I think it's easy to take for granted that we have the greatest military in the history of the world. There's a lot of people behind the scenes doing a lot of work. And when you start reading about war, you realize how much we depend on these people and how we can very easily not see them, and all the work they do. So thank you very much.
No problem, John. It's hard when things like this weekend happen, especially in a community like I'm in here. Most of my neighbors are in that unit, so it hits hard when it's that close to home. And I'm sure it hit hard in all those 5 communities where they're from as well, as I'm sure their loved ones are not doing as well as we are at this time. So that's why our thoughts and prayers go with them. And but they would want us to keep pushing forward and do positive things in life. And positive things is something not many people would you do. I'll tell you that right now. To go into any prison, I mean, you make light of it saying a rural, a minimum security camp, but it's still guys in jail. You're going in jail for the first time, and you're teaching for the first time. So that's an amazing journey for you along the way there.
Yeah, and something I never planned to do, never thought I would do, but I was looking to teach, and I'm a very determined person, and I just kept at it. And I'm 7 years in with no job offers, and I'm getting older and older, and I have no experience. And so here it was this or nothing. And so we interview at the prison, and I've never been inside of it. And I'm looking around, and these are some scary looking guys, and it's a pretty rundown place. And they show me where I'm going to be teaching, and I'm like, how could I possibly make this a classroom? And I had a half a notion to run for the door and say, no, I don't want to be a teacher anymore. But I knew it was this or never. And thank God I stuck it out, and wept the first day and did it, because it was probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. Met some really good people. I learned a lot about a system that's, could certainly use improvement. So it was life-changing. And then I'm like you, COVID hit, and they don't let anybody in prison anymore. Programs are shut down, and I got all this time. And so I wrote a book, just like you did.
Outstanding.
I actually have your book, by the way.
Awesome.
Loved it.
That's my
I loved it.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. It's a great book.
Yours right here.
I like. There we go. But I love the early years stuff when you grew up. I thought that was excellent. I love I feel like I know you, because of how you told the story. And
Awesome.
Some of your advice was excellent. So I very much enjoyed it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So John, if you don't mind, tell us a little more about, first you were an entrepreneur. So tell us about your entrepreneurial journey, and then when you decided, hey, I want to try to help others.
Absolutely. So It kind of started with my father. He never went to college. He was just a hardworking guy. And so he took the first job he could get, which was really working in a factory on the factory floor, spent 25 years building this company up and worked his way to national sales manager, which is a pretty amazing journey. You probably couldn't do that. Yeah, I mean, it took his whole career and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of travel, a lot of time away from the family, a lot of sacrifice. And he got to be in his mid-50s, and one day they just let him go. Him and all his buddies who had built this company, they had some change of management. They got rid of these guys. They were too expensive, and frankly, they were trying to steal from the company, and these guys were putting up resistance. So he goes from this very secure place where he thought he would retire from, and one day he doesn't work there anymore. And he realized that he was never going to put himself in that situation again. He said, from this day forward, I work for myself. I will never do this for somebody else. They have all the control. So he started into the industry that he had spent his life in with nothing from the dining room. And I just so happened that I was getting out of college at that time. And he said, how would you like to come to work for me? And I said, in the dining room? I mean, we got nothing. We got a phone, we got a filing cabinet, and we work in the dining room, and we have no money. He said, well, I don't have any money, but I can afford to get you a company car, and we'll have a lot of fun together. And I told him, I said, this looks really risky. I can see me getting in here and investing my time and energy, and then we're just going to fail, and all these small companies fail, and I'll have nothing to show for this time. But I know I can learn from you, so I'll tell you what, I'll give you 2 years, but then I'm moving someplace safe. Well, he had learned those big companies aren't safe. So I said, that was 1987. I said, I'll work for 2 years, but that's it. Just know that going in. So I still work for and own that company today in 2023. It's come through some amazing changes. But one thing I learned about when you work for yourself, you've got to educate yourself. And I quickly became outdated as far as new technologies, because I'm working the same way I always did. So I realized to get back in the swing of things, I had to go back to school. And I went back and I got an MBA at night. It took me 5 years at night school to get this MBA, but I was a real oddity, not just because I was 40 and everybody else was 20, but because I was a guy who ran his own business. Most people, when they get an MBA, they're doing it because they work for a big company and they're climbing the corporate ladder. I was doing it just to learn. And so they had some classes in there that they were teaching entrepreneurship, and they always asked me, would you want to come talk? Because you're the only guy we got. And I loved it. I was like, well, this is perfect. This is going to be my second career because I can help these guys. Entrepreneurship is best taught by somebody who's done it and made the mistakes, who can prevent you from making the mistakes, because you have limited resources always, no matter what you start with. And you only get so many mistakes before you fail. And the failure rate is, astronomical. I think 50% don't make it through the first year. If you can make it through 4 or 5 years, you're in the top 20. I mean, it's very, very, very difficult proposition. So I realized I could help these people. And I said, okay, enough of what I've done. I'm done with that. I built that to where I'm comfortable. I had other people running it, and I'm going to teach. And like I say, I went back and got more degrees. I couldn't get an interview. I couldn't get anything until I got the prison job. And I wanted to teach so bad. I was like, I'll just walk in there and do it, and I'll just make the best of it, and I'll learn as I go. And it was a great thing, because what I learned first and foremost was, when most people see their experience with a prison is they drive by a prison and they look and they see these guys out in the yard and they're all dressed the same and they're all exercising and they're all scary looking. And it's easy to just typecast them all and say, well, these are a bunch of losers. These guys, thank God they're locked up, because if we let them out, they'd be, tearing the town up or whatever. But when you get in and you actually meet them person to person, obviously they're not all the same. Some of these guys had a bad night, a really bad night. Some of them had a bad role model. Some of them grew up in an environment where all the successful people were lawbreakers. So they didn't have any other options or couldn't see any other option. But the system takes them in and it dehumanizes them, because it pretty much has to, because if I'm running a prison, I can't treat you like a person. Everybody's an individual, or we couldn't run a prison that way. So I have to dehumanize you so I can be tough with you, and I don't see you as a person. It's what works, unfortunately. But the problem is when you get somebody in there and they've been dehumanized and they don't feel like a person anymore, and they're not around their family, their friends, and they're not given any resources to better their lives, then when they want to better their lives, it's a very, very difficult proposition. They get out, now they've got a felony on their record. It's very hard to get a job. Nobody wants to give them a second chance. Their kids are hungry. I mean, what do? You go back to what you know or what you learn from other guys in prison. Then you get another prison sentence. This one's going to be a little longer. And it doesn't have to be this way, but it's a recidivism in this country is huge. People, once they get into the system, it's very hard to break free. So I found an opportunity to take the people that wanted to not come back to prison and give them a little information, a little hope, and a little encouragement. And it was amazing how well some of them have done who are out now. Whether or not I had anything to do with it, I don't know, but they certainly had the ability to do it. There just wasn't anything in place to help them. So it's been a very rewarding experience, and I will say, we're not here to save everybody. Right. I met plenty of guys who were very happy with the prison. They were going to get out and come back, and that's what they were going to do for the rest of their lives. And they were comfortable with that. But there was also some guys in there that didn't want to come back, and they were done with it. And they were treated the same as the guys who, didn't have that desire. So it seemed to me that it was simple enough to help them. And, like I say, there's been some success stories. So it's always good. But it wasn't what I expected.
Yeah. I took, I'm going for my PhD right now at Liberty. And part of that, I had to take a bunch of criminal justice classes to start. I never took one before this level. So my bachelor's, my master's, never touched criminal justice. And I get this level, they make me take, I think, eight criminal justice classes in a row. So I was the oddball in the class because I had no idea what anyone was talking about. I was learning on the fly, learning from a water hose, basically a fire hose. And recidivism is something that comes up. It came up in almost every course, that in revolving door at jail and reasons why. And you hit a couple of them there. There's some people that's just all they know, and that's what they're going to do. You can't. It's hard to break that cycle for some of them. And then there's some that they like you also said, one bad mistake, and that just ruined everything for the rest of their life. 1 30-second decision ruined everything. So a lot of the re-education programs, like what you're doing, could be considered part of re-education, or I guess deinstitutionalizing them to get them back into the workplace or back on their feet so they could start their own position. And that's something that really helps. And the community involvement helps as well, which is statistics have shown that. But you going on the inside, that you're the first person I've talked to that's been on the inside actually seeing it. What were some of the views of them towards you when you first met them?
Oh, they knew I was a fish out of water. I mean, these guys, if you're in prison, these guys can size you up quickly. And the first thought is, what's he doing in here? Why is he really in here? Why does he care about us? So for the first 2 weeks of my teaching career, it was pure silence. They weren't sure about me. I must have an ulterior motive, because people don't walk into prison and start teaching. It was just, I was definitely out of place. But I think the more I put my heart and soul into it, the more I was able to get a little bit of trust from some of them, and some of them extended the olive branch a little bit. And then it was funny. It was like it changed overnight. Like the decision was made as a group, this guy's okay. But it took a little while to get there. And honestly, I went in with the best of intentions. I had no ulterior motives. And I think if I'd had, they'd have sniffed it out. If I was there to report on them or whatever, or do something behind the scenes, they would have known it. But just that I didn't have one, they eventually trusted me. But it was funny, when one trusted me, it was almost like everybody trusted me. They make almost a group decision. This guy's okay. And then it was great. All of a sudden I was getting a lot of interest and action, but there's a definite kind of cooling off period where they're not sure who this guy is or what's he doing here, but we're not going to make any sudden moves until we figure him out. And you're right. I mean, recidivism, if you look at the numbers in the country, it's like over 40% of people that go to prison come back. But there's another statistic that says if you give them a class, and it doesn't have to be a college level class, it could be a class on welding or anything, teach them just some skill, then you can reduce it by 15% with one class. So, I mean, it's a great way to invest in people who want to,
improve their
make
situation.
their life better. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's kind of like when you got out of the military, you had a little trouble finding a job, right? I mean, at first, because it is a transition. And so you got to get somebody's mind to where, okay, what you've learned in here isn't going to help you much out here. We've got to shape it a little and sharpen it up. It's obviously prison is much different than the military, but it's the same kind of situation where you're going into a new environment. So
you're still a fish out of water because learning the whole civilian way of doing things based on what you did for 22 years, it's a lot different. What's
right.
expected of you in the civilian world based on what was expected of you for 22 years is way different. So you get to do a lot less in the civilian world and make a lot more money.
Oh, 100%. Right. It's all based on money, which is something that you don't see there. Yeah. Very true. But yeah, it was a great experience.
You said a couple of them have been successful. I'm sure you keep in touch with at least them guys. What have they done? Have they started their own businesses since you taught them entrepreneur basics, or did they just wind up in business somewhere?
A lot of them had a plan before they met me. They had done it before. I got one guy that's got a successful painting company, one guy who's a successful general contractor. It's a lot of blue collar work, but that's kind of what is best to start a business with, because you don't need a lot of startup money. My real success story is a guy I met, and he was 24 years old. He made a mistake at 17 that got him a 7-year prison sentence. But when I met this guy, he was very much like myself. He checked every box for a successful entrepreneur. I hadn't met too many people like him. And I got to know him pretty well, and he kept asking to come work for my company when he got out. And I kept saying, no. I made a promise to myself. No promises when you get out. I'm not going to do it, because everybody wanted to do that. But he just wouldn't let it go. I really want to come work for you. I really want to. And so he did it enough. I was like, I tell you what, when you get out, I got a place for you. And we'll give it a try. If you want it that bad, let's see what happens. And he's been with me now 3 years. He's basically about doubled the sales of my company, and he runs all the operations. An incredible person. Yeah. And who would have thought? You meet him in the day room of a prison. I never would have seen that. But there's other people like him in there that just aren't given that chance. But if they are given the chance, they can really go places. But yeah, you think about, the worst thing you've ever done. We've all made mistakes. If you read the book, I made some horrible mistakes when I was a kid. But I came from white middle class, upper middle class. And when the police, in a small town too, so everybody knew everybody. So when the police caught me screwing up, they took me back to my parents and said, better deal with this kid. He's screwing up. And you look at somebody who maybe came from a poor environment or the wrong side of the tracks. When he gets picked up, they're not taking him home. They're taking him to juvenile hall. And he's going to start down that road of incarceration. And it's really not fair. I learned a lot about statistics and who gets a fair shake in the criminal justice system and who doesn't. And after a few classes, I started telling my guy his first day, if you're not white, rich, and well-educated, don't break the law, because it's a different system for people of color, people of lower income, and people of lack of education. They don't get the same deal that a rich white guy gets. I mean, it's just how it works.
And afford to fight it, you're going to get fought, and it's not going to be good for you.
Exactly. It's not a good place to be, right? You got no weapons. You're right. Exactly.
In our lifetime, we've seen a very wealthy man get away with a pretty cut and dry murder because he had money and colors.
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time.
The world.
Yeah. I mean, really, if you can, and you think about it. And when I met a lot of guys, and this is really the travesty, they had been arrested for something and they said they didn't do it. I don't know. Maybe they did. And it wasn't even that bad of an offense. But COVID, they had slowed the court systems down so much that you were waiting 2 and 3 years to go to trial. So if you don't have bail money, you're doing 3 years, even if you're innocent. Now, a guy with bail money goes home that day. And so what kind of system is this? So what they would do is go up to these guys and say, okay, you've done 3 years. If you'll plead guilty, we'll let you go home today. If you want to not plead guilty, then you can stay in jail until your court date, and you might get 15 years. Now, who's going to take that chance? So I had a lot of guys say, hey, man, I didn't even do this one, but I took the deal. I mean, I had to. And that's really not justice. Yeah.
And then that stays on the record anymore.
Exactly. Now you've got a felony too.
Can't vote no more and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. And who's going to hire you? Most people, eliminate that application before they even meet the person, because if there's a criminal record on there, that's all they want to see. That's all they need to see, I guess I should say.
So once they see that on there, it's over. Let's go on to the next or something like that.
On to the next one. Absolutely.
Most
Yeah.
businesses,
they make it when you have to check the box.
Being a business owner
Right. So,
and successful, you know that you only have so much time to read a resume, so much time to read a report on somebody. And if that's the first thing that's on there, okay, gone. And it's a horrible thing, but I know that's what happened across the board.
and I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it myself. It's just like you say, if I've got 50 applicants and 10 of them have a felony on the record, well, it's 40 real quick. I can eliminate those from the top of the stack. Now, I wouldn't do that today because I've gotten to know some of them, and I might get to want to meet them first. But it's that mindset of he's made a mistake. We can't risk bringing him in here. He who knows, he'll go off the rails on us. But
Exactly.
Especially in minimum security, they're not all like that.
Right. And they're usually the prisoners that have shown a promise or shown that they can be trusted or something like that. And either if they didn't start there, they moved there because of that.
Exactly right. Usually, if you've got a prison sentence, they put you in the hardest prison they got, and you work your way up the ladder through good behavior, and it takes years to get to that level. Minimum security. The people always ask me, "Did you ever feel threatened? Were you worried about your safety?" And during the interview, I very much was. I was like, "Well, what do I do when there's a riot?" And they were all laughing at me. Although they won't believe me, there won't be a riot. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I watch TV. What am I supposed to do?" I said, "I'm not going to turn the job down, but do I crawl under the desk? Is there a whistle? I mean, what do I do?" And they were just laughing at me like, "You don't know what this place is like. Just wait." And you realize once you're in there, these guys throw a punch at anybody, they're going right back to the bad place. And then they got to work their way 2 or 3 more years. And so you never see it. You never see any physical altercations. You don't even really see verbal disagreements. It's a very calm place. Because everybody's got a lot to lose. If they go to war, they lose. Doesn't matter if they win the fight, they lose. So, it's a good, safe place. I never saw any, trouble amongst themselves or against me. So it's interesting.
All the movies you've seen, like Attica or Last Castle and stuff like that, they were going through your head like crazy. That's what I'm going into.
Oh, sure.
And then you're in a day room with a bunch of dudes that are just in minimum security and just really wanting a chance. Hopefully, most of them wanted a chance and didn't want to do anything wrong. So that's awesome. It's a great experience for both of you, both them and you at that point, because you're both, like you said earlier, you're both feeling each other out at the beginning. And they right away, I'm sure they tried to test you at first, and you won. So you earned that trust, and that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, I just because, like I said, I didn't have any ulterior motives, and I was there just to help. And I enjoyed the teaching part. I really thought I could take some of these guys and point them in the right direction, and change their lives, and really not just their lives, but the lives of their children, the lives of their families. Because of the one thing you don't realize, if you've got a guy in prison and his wife is now raising the kids, he becomes a burden on that family and not a provider. And that's a really difficult thing as a man to realize that, the people that I'm supposed to be taking care of are taking care of me now. I've seen a lot of guys really torn up over that. I'm not being a man to this family. In fact, I'm dependent on them. And that just beats your self-esteem, right into the ground. So something you don't think about, but when you see it, you get it, that here I've made a bad mistake and my kids don't get Christmas kind of thing.
Right. I read an article, I think just yesterday, CJ Stroud, the quarterback for the Houston Texans, was from Ohio State. His dad's been in jail since he was a little kid and won't get out till to 2040 as of right now, a 38-year sentence or something like that. He has never seen his son play football. That's all CJ wants to do, see him play. And so he's trying to work things to get him out and maybe at least let him go and see a game. He's never seen him play. And he also said, I never stopped loving my dad. I believe in the Lord, and the Lord will bring it back to me. So he's a very religious guy, very passionate about his beliefs. And that's what the story was. His dad's never seen him play and won't be able to come out till 2040.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I didn't know that. That's incredible. I mean, that's a tough guy to do that without a father, right? To get that far along. Definitely not easy. Yeah, that's amazing.
So I'm glad that the village was able to pick him up, I'm guessing, and him forward to the success he's having now. And of course he had a strong mom as well.
I'm for sure of that. Yeah. And there's always somebody that fills that gap. I mean, hopefully, you hope that somebody
Right.
stepped up, an uncle or somebody, to fill that role, because obviously everybody needs it. You know, it's very important. So,
All right, we're going to switch a little bit here. What's the best qualities, like you being an entrepreneur growing up there, you watched your dad succeed. What best qualities do you see a person needs to be successful making a business of their own?
that's a great question. And what I learned through experience more than anything, it's not necessarily the smartest guy. It's not necessarily the guy who works the hardest. It's the person who's determined to make it happen. And I say that because, you know, this business has been around now over 30 years. And there were at least 2 times when I had called in a business broker to sell it because I didn't see any future at all. I mean, things were going really, really bad, and it was all out of my control. I had gotten myself into a 5-year lease, and I couldn't pay the rent. I was getting to the point where they were going to come take my house because I couldn't pay the rent. Yeah, it was a horrible mess. And so I thought, well, I'm done. You know, this is over. And luckily, the partner I had in business, he owned 20%. I gave him 20% of the business. And I said, well, you need to know this because you're a part owner, but we're selling the company. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, I can keep sitting here and not being able to pay my rent, and they're going to take my house. So I'd rather not that happen. And he said, man, what are you talking about? Why don't you just go out and get some more customers and quit crying? You know, why don't you go out and make this happen? I'm not quitting. And I said, okay, let me tell you something. I really don't see a bright future here. But this is my best friend from 8th grade. I said, but if you want to keep fighting, it's like being in the military. I'm not turning my back on you, brother. We'll go down in flames maybe, but we'll go up that hill one more time. And when I did that, as soon as I agreed to do it, everything changed. Everything came back into favor, and the company took off. But there were some really low points that anybody in their right mind would have probably gotten out of that situation because it was looking bleak. But you just can't. I mean, you can change direction, but you can't give it up. I mean, that's the difference. If you look at all the successful people, or a lot of them, they usually have a similar story where they were ready to throw in the towel. They had a really bad situation and they just didn't. And that's the day when things turn around for you. It's incredible. But to me, determination rules everything. If you are the kind of person who says, I'll find a way to make this happen, whatever I got to do, I'm going to do it. You know, if I got to work 20-hour days and sleep 4, and go out and get new customers in different places, I will do that. Those people are the ones that are going to make it above all, you know? So, and I learned that through experience. Yeah. And that's why when I wanted to teach, I wasn't going to quit. I'll keep sending out applications until I'm 60 years old, 70 years old, and they won't even look at me. I mean, that's fine. I'm not quitting. And fortunately, I think that was the best thing I've learned in this life is if you want something bad enough, you just got to stick with it and get it, whatever it takes.
Definitely. You got to keep pushing forward. Don't quit. Don't quit on yourself. Oh, and write something on the wall. Write something on the wall so you have to look at it every day until you make it right, until it works. And then you can erase it and write something else on the wall. And if you run through that wall and you blow through it and make amazing things, awesome. If you run into the wall, fall down, get back up and do it again. Just keep going until you get it right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the difference. And the people that I met who have made it and the ones who didn't make it was because they gave up, you know. And sometimes you feel like it's the best move, but I don't think it's ever the best move, you know, till you're just down and out. You keep going, change direction, whatever you want to do. But, you know, if you want to accomplish something, you just stay at it. And it eventually seems to get there one way or the other.
Like Ross said on Friends, pivot until you get it right. Pivot.
Yeah, it seems right. Try something new. Who knows?
Seems crazy, but it works sometimes.
Yeah, it does. It's funny. It's not what you think. And a lot of people, when they start a business, they think it's going to be quick money. Most of the guys, because I'm dealing with guys in prison, they were used to the quick money, but they think I'm going to get this great idea, or I'm going to go get 1,000 YouTube followers, or I'm going to go, within 6 months I'm going to be a star, or I'm going to be a millionaire. And man, it's a long grind. So you got to prepare yourself for getting this, where it needs to be. You're coming up on 3 years
on this
podcast. Is that right? Yeah, next month, right? Yeah, congratulations. That is pretty amazing because I know there's a lot of people that don't make it past just a few shows.
Yeah, the statistics on podcasting is 10 shows. 10 shows is usually the wall. and that's it. They get tired or they just don't understand what they're doing anymore and they quit. That's why there's a lot. If you go on any podcast apps, there's a lot of just ghost shows out there. So many people started and just quit.
Yeah, and I've known a bunch, and I don't know that many people that do podcasts, but I've known a few that they got a great idea. They got their first 3 or 4 guests lined up, and then they draw a blank and go, "Well, I'm out of ideas. I guess it's over." So for you to make it to 3 years, congratulations. That's an accomplishment that not many people get to.
Thank you.
And it's kind of like a small business. If you can make it to 3, I mean, you're past the big barriers, I think.
Past the mountain, I think, now. So I can.
You've got it figured out.
I'm having fun now, meeting guys like you, authors like you, entrepreneurs like you. So you're like 3 things at once: author, entrepreneur, and teacher, all in one thing. So that's 3 people in one show, sitting in one spot.
There you go, right? Hey, I can switch gears anytime you need me to.
Exactly. Advice to everybody on here.
Yeah. Never run out of things to talk about.
Exactly. Give the audience a couple tidbits on how to get started to writing, and more specifically, a memoir.
I tell you what, it was a little intimidating. I actually lost my prison job before COVID, and it was just because I'm in the philosophical camp of I'm trying to help these guys and build them up, and everybody running the prison is in the other camp of we're going to keep them down. Now, I didn't work for the prison. I worked for the college, so they couldn't fire me. But they did find a way to let me not in the gates one day, and that was it. It was over. And I went to my father's wife, and I said, well, I got some news for you. I don't have any more prison stories. They love my prison stories. Tell me about this guy. What did this guy say? What happened? And I said, well, the prison stories are over. And she said, well, I guess you'll have to write a book about it. And I thought about it for about 10 seconds, and I was like, I think you're right. I think I should do that because I can take the reader inside with me, and I'll tell you exactly what happened to me. And maybe at the end, you'll see things that I saw where it changed my perspective. But, with COVID, I did all the household projects, and then it was like, okay, we're in quarantine. We're not getting out. I've got all kinds of time. I'm just going to start writing. You sit down and you start writing. And I tell you what, is one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. I don't care if I never sell a book. It was very much worth it because when I got, you get your early beta readers in there, and they take your rough stuff and they take, change it around, make the change. And my story was all about teaching in prison. And they all said, no, you can't do that. We need to know, how did you get to the prison? Tell us about your business. Tell us about this and that. And so I had to turn it into a full-blown memoir, which I never planned to do. But like they asked me, for instance, why did you marry your wife? I said, man, I don't know. It seemed like the right thing to do at the time. No. What was it about her that made you know that she was the one you wanted to marry? And I was like, I never really thought about it. So, you go back and you look at these little things that happened in your life, and you think about things that maybe you hadn't thought of in a long time or remembered in a long time. And you learn a lot about yourself, and you remember the people that really came through for you, maybe took an interest when you were young and gave you good direction. You forgive the people that maybe didn't fill the roles they were supposed to. And I think above all, you forgive yourself. So I would advise anybody, if you're sitting down with a pen and paper, or you're sitting down with a word processor or whatever you've got, and you want to write, sit down and write, because it'll be one of the best journeys you'll ever go on. Even if that book never sees the light of day, you'll learn more about yourself and what made you than you'd expect. So it was a great thing. I don't think I'll write another book. I think one book did it for me. I'm a one and out kind of writer, but it was a great time. But you just write until you get to a point where it seems confusing, and then, get somebody to look at it and get an objective opinion, and then get another one. And you'll be amazed what comes out. I it was pretty fascinating for me to remember all that stuff. How long did it take you to write your first book?
The first one, probably that whole year. So the end of 21, from 20 to 20, December of 20 to December of 21 is when it was released. So that whole year, and then with my daughter being my editor, kicking it back to me so many times, tell me I don't write right. I write like I talk and things like that. So we had to go back. Since she was published in high school, so she was the expert on books and stuff, and she still is. She helped me with my second book as well. She made sure my cover was correct and made sure the verbiage was correct. My characters were developed correctly. So my second book just came out September 11th. That book took me a lot longer.
Oh, I have to get that.
I kept stopping writing it because I don't want to more. I'm like kind of like you were saying, I don't want to do this, but then jump back in. I kept jumping back in and cutting things out. And now I finished the first, and I'm already started the second part of the book, the second book to go with it.
Oh wow! So is this more of a memoir of your?
The book that just came out is a fictional book based on many of the people I served with. So many people will be like 4 or 5 people will be combined into each character to build a story about mental health in the military as they go through battle and stuff.
Oh wow, well, that's my next book. Well, your daughter did a great job. I thought that it flowed perfectly. I didn't find any mistakes. She's very, very good.
I'll let her know and make her head get bigger.
Yeah, that's right. She earned it. She earned it because that's a tough job.
Yes, it is.
It's a tough job.
It's hard to tell your dad what to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure she was very gentle about it.
Yeah, sure she was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. John's been great chatting with you. How does someone get in contact with you if they want to have you on their show, or if they want to just talk to you about maybe making the decision to get into business or become a teacher in prison?
Hey, that's great. I appreciate that. And we do have classes now. I'm not teaching in prison, but I hooked up with a guy who was in that prison. I didn't know him at that time, but he was an inmate who got out and wanted to start an education program. And I had happened to hire him to work for my company, and I didn't know that. And we were talking one day after work, and I said, man, I got all the material. I built a class for 3 years. So we work together now, and we help people on the outside. It's all volunteer work that either are recently released or are overcoming obstacles in their life. And we call our company Lifeline Education Connection. The name of the book is Lifeline to a Soul. And if you go to our website, it's lifelinetoasoul.com. At the very bottom of the page, there's a place to leave your email address. And anybody who leaves their email address and would like a copy of the book and mentions Misfit Nation or Rich LaMonica, I would be more than happy to send you one at no cost. I'll autograph them because I didn't write the book to sell books as much as I did to help people change their perspective and maybe give somebody a second chance who wouldn't have got one.
And that's all. So, and that website is going across the bottom for anyone who's on deal right now, who listens on your podcast, so you can get your copy of Lifeline to a Soul. So how you can help John and his team as they educate others to do better things in life. John, this has been great having you on tonight. I'm glad I told you in the green room my Tuesday, bad news on Tuesdays all the time here. You made this a great Tuesday. Thank you again for taking the time to hang out with us.
I appreciate you having me, Rich. It's totally my pleasure. I'm looking forward to your second book.
Thank you. You have a great night.
Great. Okay, you too, Rich. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye now.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all of our past episodes and get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are Misfit Nation.